Okay. All right. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for coming on to the webinar today. My name is Troy Tucker. I'm the president and founder of Blue Sky Business Resources. Blue Sky Business Resources is a mergers and acquisition advisory firm, and we also offer full service valuation work, business valuation work, and we have a very robust consulting process. I'd like to take a minute to introduce everybody. We have Chris Badger with Now CFO. Chris is a managing partner at Now CFO, I believe, and is a phenomenal guy, one of the hardest working individuals I've had the pleasure of meeting. David Stahl is a banking extraordinaire kind of guy. He works at Hillcrest Bank, and he's in charge of their commercial lending division here in Utah. We also have Matt Burgess on the line. He works with Blue Sky Business Resources. He heads up our funding department and has helped numerous companies and business owners apply for the emergency loan and starting to branch out into the PPL and trying to show people where and how to go about processing that. David Stahl also has a wealth of experience on that. We also have David Gruder, Dr. David Gruder on the panel as well. Dr. David Gruder is an organizational psychologist, and he works with us here at Blue Sky, helping us understand the different cultures and people we get involved with, and he does leadership consulting as well. We also have Amy LaSala on, and she's going to be managing the webinar chat. We do welcome all comments and feedback, and want to make this as conversational as possible. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Badger and David and Matt to talk about the different loan processes. Chris, I'm going to let you take over, sir. Amy, you have everybody muted.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. We're just going to start sharing there. And as Troy said, my name is Chris Badger. I'm with Now CFO. So over the last 3 weeks, we've just been inundated with questions from clients as far as what do I do? What loan do I apply for? And it's been changing quite rapidly over the last 2 weeks once CARES Act was passed, and we have some new PPP loans in process, and we have the old disaster loans. And so I'm going to talk quickly about the disaster loans. At the end of this presentation, we'll send you out a copy of the slides, and so there's a couple links to the SBA website and some other good links that can help you through this process. But I'm going to be covering the disaster loan portion of it, and then David Stahl from Hillcrest Bank, as a professional banker, is going to cover the PPP loan program. If you have any questions, please send them to the host, and we'll answer those questions here at the end. But let's go ahead and let's jump in and talk about disaster loans first. And real quick, the two programs, here they are side by side, so just a couple different highlights between them. So with the disaster loan, you go up to $2 million. The Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loan, the PPP, is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, and that amount can go up to 10%, or excuse me, not 10%, $10 million. So max on the disaster loan, $2 million. Max on the PPP loan, $10 million, but it's the lesser of $10 million or 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. The interest rate for the disaster loan, it's 3.75%. The new guidance with the SBA for the interest rate is at 1%. The disaster loan, payback, 30 years, long amortization, 30 years. For the PPP loan, no payments for 6 months, and then a 2-year amortization for anything that's not forgiven. And then let's highlight that there at the bottom of that slide. The disaster loan, you don't get anything forgiven, right? With the PPP loan, as you go through it, if you do it correctly, you can have all of that loan forgiven if you're using it for payroll and other approved expenses. Let's focus in on the disaster loans, also known as the economic industry disaster loans, the EIDL loans. Again, the maximum is $2 million. You can be a small for-profit business. You can be a not-for-profit. So not-for-profit, you get a little bit of break on the interest rate. And again, you have that long 30-year amortization. For not-for-profits, it's really opened up everything from 501c3s to 4s to 5s to 19s. Pretty much any entity that's set up under the 501c not-for-profit, including associations, are eligible, okay? This loan is specifically supposed to help you pay your working capital needs. What are your monthly payments? Payroll, lease, rent, utilities, telephones, everything that you would have to pay out on a monthly basis that because of the coronavirus, you can't make those payments. Specifically, when you see SBA disaster loan, this is the loan that you're going to go directly to the SBA website. You're going to apply for it on the SBA website.
So have they been changing the loan requirements or the application itself? How often has that been changing? Because I've been hearing scuttlebutt that's really been a moving target.
Yeah, so actually as of March 29th, the SBA came out and they did this new streamlined application process. And so when they first announced it about a week and a half before the CARES Act was passed, President Trump put in like $50 billion into this disaster loan program. The SBA was just so inundated, their website was down, I think 4 out of 7 days that week. And so they were just getting floods of applications. And so they went back through, kind of redesigned, and they came up with a streamlined process. The application period application time really only about 2 hours. The last one that I did on Monday took about an hour and a half. So once you have the information put together, it's really a much streamlined process because they're not requiring you to do all the forms that previously they were requiring you to. So previously you had to do your personal financial statement. You had to do requests to the IRS for copies of tax returns. You had to do schedules of liabilities as well as financials. Okay, so those have kind of taken the back seat to this new streamlined application process. And so, Troy, it's actually a much easier process. Along with this disaster loan application process, this is where you can also apply for the $10,000 grant, okay? So these grants don't need to be repaid even if you don't get a loan, okay? So if you want that $10,000 grant, this is the process you have to do. You have to apply for the disaster loan, and then you'll also apply for that $10,000 grant.
Have you heard of anybody getting the grant yet, Chris? Or
no?
Is the 3-day really a reality?
So it's kind of interesting that $10,000 grant, originally they said you're gonna get it within 3 days of applying of your application. Well, what they don't tell you is that streamlined application to them is not a complete full application. And so even after you have got the application number for your disaster loan, they're going to probably ask you for more information before they process anything. So we have done it, I think, for a total of 19 different clients, and to date, none of them have gotten the grant yet. So,
has there been any communication back from the SBA, or is it just crickets?
It's been crickets so far. And so the SBA people that we were able to get on the phone late or early last week, so a week and a couple days ago, they really didn't have much information, and they said, apply, you'll get your loan in the queue, apply for it, and we'll get back to you. They did state that they were not going to be able to do telephone calls out, and most of the contact with people that have applied for these disaster loans are going to be through email. So make sure you have a good email address. Okay.
Great information.
it's a pretty easy process online. You're just going to identify that you're a small business. You're going to state that you're not in any illegal activity, because we're in multiple states here. If you're in the cannabis industry, guess what? You're an illegal activity in the eyes of the federal government, and you are not eligible for SBA loans. Okay, so that's specifically cannabis. If you're just doing CBD oil, that is legal. You could qualify.
Okay.
The other piece with this disaster loan, you got to say you're up to date on all your child support. You're not an agricultural enterprise. So for these disaster loans, they're specifically for the coronavirus, or not for agricultural enterprises. Also, you can't be a lobbyist. You can't be in the, I think I love this, live performance of a prurient sexual nature. So, so strip clubs, I guess, can't apply. And state and local municipalities are not eligible. But remember, most 501c not-for-profit entities are eligible. You know, the general information you need to do for this on a streamlined online form is really all the information you'd see on the first page of your tax return for your entity. So whether you're filing a C Corp, S Corp, or LLC, that information that's on the first page of your tax return that has the date it was set up, the legal name, a DBA if you're using it. The other piece they're going to want is 12 months of revenue and 12 months of cost of goods sold. Okay, so you'll put that in. And again, make sure you have good contact information. If you're a landlord or a leasing operation, they're going to want to know how much rent you've lost. And then also, you're going to have to disclose if you have any insurance in process. So if you have business interruption insurance, that doesn't mean that you're barred from applying. They just want you to disclose it. So don't wait till the insurance is settled. Go ahead and apply, but just disclose that you have that insurance in process. What's neat about the disaster loans and the PPP loans is no personal guarantees. But if you are a 20% more owner of an entity, you do need to disclose that information, that personal information. That includes your Social Security, date of birth, and everything else. So remember, no personal guarantees, but you have to disclose any owners that are over 20%. And again, remember, through this loan application, the last page of it is where you will apply for your emergency economic injury grant, your $10,000. And it's really nice, Troy, they kind of lead you on because you get to put in your banking account information, and it makes you feel real good. But like I said, right now to date, I don't know anybody that's received that.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any charitable organizations that can't apply? It seemed like we were talking yesterday or the day before, and you mentioned.
So real quick, for the disaster loans, pretty much all not-for-profits are eligible for that. Associations, 501c4s, homeowners organizations, 501c3s, charitable organizations, those are all eligible for the disaster loan.
Okay.
For the PPP loan that David's going to talk about, you have to be a 501c3, which is a charitable organization, or a 501c19, which is a veterans organization. So for the PPP program, they exclude a lot of not-for-profits. Okay.
Gotcha.
But for the disaster loan, pretty much anybody that's under that that not-for-profit umbrella can do that. Okay.
Great information. Are there tax consequences for getting this money, Chris? What happens? I mean, if you get an emergency loan for $2 million, are you going to have to pay taxes on that, or how is that going to work?
It's specifically, so Troy, it is a loan, and so you'll have to pay it back. Remember, you got a 30-year process.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the intent is with the disaster loan is that if you get a PPP loan subsequently, is you're going to refinance that disaster loan in your PPP loan. And remember, the triple P loan is what you can have forgiven. The disaster loan, it's a loan. You have to pay it back. It's 30 years amortization, but you have to pay it back. And so it's a loan. It's not taxable income. And David will cover for the triple P loan, for the part that you have forgiven, it's not subject to be taxable income. So it's not subject to taxation. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to David, and he is going to kick up and talk to us about the triple P program. So David, if we can unmute you. And
I'm unmuted. Hopefully you can hear me. Perfect. Are you seeing my screen? Perfect. Yeah, so thanks, Chris, and thanks, Troy, for putting this on, and thanks to the South Valley Chamber for helping us stand this up and make sure that small businesses and businesses throughout our Utah community get information and access to the loan programs that are available to support small businesses. And so, so my portion of this, like Chris was referring to, the EIDL loan program is administered directly by the SBA. The PPP loan program, which is the $349 billion of set-aside funds in the CARES Act, is being administered directly by banks and credit unions for the purposes of supporting what should be majority payroll-related efforts for the next 8 weeks, or 4 to 8 pay periods, depending on your specific payroll schedule, and then including a portion of that in there for some other expenses, which we'll get into here shortly. And so broadly, any business that was in business before February 15th, 2020, were eligible for this program. Recent guidance from the SBA was, it is now allowing for you to use the trailing 12 months of payroll for your eligible payroll calculation. So originally it was intended to be just all of 2019, if you were in business for all of 2019, or just the first 2 months of 2020. But since the program opening 2 Fridays ago, being signed into law, the SBA and the Fed have opened that up to the trailing 12 months. And so that may make a difference for any businesses that have been growing and hiring a lot of people toward the tail end of last year and into this year, to make sure that the payroll number is a little more accurate to what it may have been in prior years. So the PPP loan terms, interest rates, et cetera. So these are loans. They are intended to be short-term loans that for all intents and purposes will be forgivable after the initial period. The bill allowed originally for up to 10 years. Treasury's guidance to lenders and banks and credit unions these will be 2-year loans. So basically, when you get your loan from under the PPP program, you'll have 6 months of deferral, and then when you're ready to begin, when the SBA opens up its forgiveness window, if there's any amount of that loan that is otherwise not forgiven at the end of that loan program, it will convert into a 2-year, or the remainder of the 2 years, and you'll have to repay that loan. The maximum interest rate was originally slated at 4% for the banks to issue these loans. They moved it down midweek last week to 0.5%, and they have since increased it to 1%. And so effectively, from the day you fund this loan, it'll be accruing interest at 1%. The payments will still be made. The regularly scheduled payments will still be made on behalf of you by the SBA for the first 6 months. And then, any amount at the end should be forgiven. So banks will not be charging you to put these loans together. The SBA and the Treasury has stood up a one-time fee program. And so if you've ever done a traditional regular SBA loan, you have the guarantee fees. In this case, you will not, and no bank or lender should be charging you to process these loans. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. So the main thing covered by the PPP loan program is intended. So if you're in the situation where you've had to unfortunately furlough or lay some people off, the program allows you until June 30th to bring those people back on payroll. And so there's some strict requirements in there around maintaining payroll levels. There's some flexibility in the amount of comp. You can decrease the comp a little bit, but not too much. But the intent is this program was designed for businesses to keep their employees employed through sort of the COVID easing requirements that our administration has and local governments have instituted. And so eligible businesses, I think Chris talked about it, had to be in business before February 15th, 2020, less than 500 employees. There are some size standards that are being waived, if not waived, but loosened if the company is in the hospitality industry. And so some of those are relaxed, and we've got a link to the website for how to calculate whether or not you meet the size standard from an employee count perspective. Sole proprietors, self-employed individuals and independent contractors, they are not eligible to apply yet. That program should open up this Friday when all the independent contractors and 1099 employees of the businesses can file for the same application. Affiliation rules. So the application will have you attest to any affiliates that you may have, and then you'll be required to provide an addendum to explain what those affiliates are. The purpose of that is making sure that there's no other entity or business that the applicant has been involved with that has either defaulted or been called into default or lost any money in any other SBA program. And also the SBA monitors how much exposure they're giving to any one borrower through the SBA guarantee program. And so for more information on that and to determine your eligibility efforts there, take a look at that website and you can determine. I mean, we've processed nearly 1,000 applications here at Hillcrest so far since opening it up last Friday, and I don't think we've had any issues really around the affiliation rules. Maximum loan amount is very formulaic. So as I was mentioning, you take your trailing 12 months payroll information, and that includes all of the appropriate taxes, fees, healthcare costs, etc., everything that's in there, and you divide it by 12, and you gross it up by 2.5 times. The maximum loan amount is $10 million. I think the largest one we've processed at Hillcrest is 6.5. But most of the loan amounts are in the $350,000 to $1.5 million range. For new businesses, so if you were not in business for all of 2019, as I mentioned earlier, and I've processed one application where this was applicable. We took their first 4 payroll cycles and then calculated that pro forma for a 12-month period of time, and then averaged that out and grossed it up by 2.5 times. So presently, right now, we do not have any guidance. As Chris was mentioning, there's nothing precluding you from applying for both loans. Unfortunately, you can only have one under this program. The SBA PPP application has the applicant certify that they have not received any funds under a similar program. And so what a similar program is defined as is the EIDL. And so initially there was some intention that the EIDL proceeds, if you had received any, would be refinanced potentially into the PPP program, loan program. However, that we have not gotten any guidance on how to do that. If you have received your $10,000 grant, there is a spot on the PPP application where you will identify that. And that is included in the loan amount that you would get from us. So if your average payroll grossed up 2.5 times becomes $250,000, and you receive the $10,000 grant, your loan amount with the bank would be $260,000, because the intent is that $10,000 grant is forgiven anyway. But the SBA authorization drives the validation on the backside, and so you can only get one program at this time. And I'm going to caveat everything I say with "at this time." So again, the PPP loan is primarily focused on just a couple of very prescriptive expenses. Primary, first and foremost, is payroll costs. The program actually calls for you to ensure that you're using at least 75% of your loan towards payroll-related costs associated with keeping your people on staff. So other expenses are bullet pointed here, but we kind of bucket them in 4 categories, and you'll see this on the PPP application. But payroll costs, rent, interest on any other debt, and utilities. I'm often asked, well, what constitutes as a utility? At this point, we have not been given further guidance as everything that is included under the utility bucket. But since that only 25% of your loan is intended to be used for those final 3 bullets, I feel like utilities should be one of those categories that may not end up coming into play too much. And so as an example, I had walked a retailer through the calculation process, and it turns out that their rent was actually the bigger expense versus their payroll. And so we recommended that we knew that there was no way they were going to be able to hit and keep under or above that 75% minimum. And so we suggested the EIDL loan might be a better path for them versus the PPP loan. Because the last thing any lender or any business advisor wants to have happen is for a business to be saddled with any of this portion of this loan that's not forgiven at the end. And so we're still waiting on this. This slide here talks conceptually about how the program is intended to be go through the forgiveness process. As a lender, we have not seen any guidance specifically on how we'll do that. We know that the issuing bank will be the one helping your business through the reconciliation and the forgiveness process. But this essentially goes kind of over how that process should unfold and what costs are there and how things are calculated. The one bullet point I'll talk about here real quick wasn't highlighted, but if you've got any high wage earners in your calculation, make sure that you they have a cap at 100,000 per employee. So that could mess up your formula a little bit, but I know our bank's calculator that we're providing to clients who are interested in the program helps them exclude the high wage earners and make sure that the loan amount that they're calculating is actually a little more accurate. So like I said, how do you apply for the forgiveness? Your lender's going to help you. There's several documentations here. These are the ones that we do know of. One thing I want to make sure that we're trying to help our clients think about is the verification of these things. And so if you've ever worked on an SBA loan, there's a lot of documentation and verification processes. And so we're still unclear on that, but more to come on exactly how that'll happen. Because we're just now starting to get the funding out. The banks are just now starting to fund these loans that they took starting on Friday. So we talked a little bit about that. Moving on to who's offering this. And so if you've I know there's been a lot of information around the PPP program, and presently all current SBA 7A lenders are authorized to disperse to do these loans. 40% of the banks, and I'm sure that number has increased a little bit now because a lot of banks banks and credit unions had wanted to get on this boat. But in the nation, only 40% of the banks are actually preferred SBA lenders before this program had started. And so, so credit unions are there as well. Not included on this list. There's a link to SBA lenders. But if you go to the Utah Bankers Association or the Utah Credit Unions Association, both of them also have a listing of banks and participating lenders in that program. As a side note, I've reached out to the head of the Utah Bankers Association because Hillcrest Bank is not on that list, but that might be because we're only a year old in this state, and they may not be aware of us yet. So, but we are an approved lender administering this program. So debt relief for small businesses under the bill, federal agencies will be required to extend periods for small businesses and independent contractors. The bill serves 17 billion people in funding. And so this is, looking at this slide here, this is one really neat thing about the CARES Act program is that in addition to the PPP allocation, is that anyone with an existing SBA loan, 7A Express, and 504s are somewhat eligible in there as well, but mostly the 40% that's SBA guaranteed. The SBA will be making their payments for the next 6 months. I do believe that period started in April because the clients that we have with SBA loans had their April payments made for them by the SBA, and that'll continue for the next 5 months thereafter. So even if you have an existing SBA loan and you're thinking about what relief there is, the SBA is there to help you for that.
So on top of having your regular SBA loan, you could still get the PPP loan. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's a handful of people who we had SBA loans for in process, as well as the existing SBA loans that we have, and we've submitted and processed applications for all of those as well.
Great.
Sorry, I wasn't monitoring the chat feature. Hopefully, no questions came in while I was presenting.
I didn't see any questions. I'd have interrupted you if there had been a question come in. I think you covered that very well. So, Matt, in the people that you've been working with, what's been some of your feedback on the loan process application and just some of your commentary of what you've been seeing and hearing out there? Matt's not able to unmute himself, Amy. I don't think anybody is, to be honest with you.
There we go.
Oh,
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Thank God we're not on Verizon.
Well, I think there's obviously, with the mounting frustration that has went on with, just the whole scenario that we're in right now. We're seeing, these guys you guys have done a fantastic job explaining through the slides how these processes work. Behind the scenes with businesses that are struggling and trying to figure out what they need to do. The challenges that I've seen is, trying to figure out how to analyze just their basic cash flow for the next 30 days and seeing if they can survive. That's been a tremendous challenge with businesses that they're grabbing and they're going to, with the cash flow I have, am I going to have to lean on SBA? So when we've applied, I think several businesses were expecting, there was a fantasy out there that they were actually going to get money in 3 days. So that didn't happen. So the frustration this week has been a whole uproar of aggravation about that. Some of the other things that I'm seeing, it's decision time for companies and how important it is right now that if you're a company out there and you're trying to decide, should I lay off my employees? Should I bring them back in? These decisions that have to be made, we can't necessarily make those decisions for you, but I can encourage you enough. Look at the panel that you have in front of you right now. And I am going to suggest that any businesses, or if you know businesses that need help right now, we're here to help you. So when you're down to going, am I going to be able to survive over the next several weeks or the next several months, getting that strategy and game plan together. But, going back to what these guys said, there are opportunities out there. If you need help, we're here. Reach out to the panel. I think anyone here is more than willing and excited to help out along the way. If you need help with, anything on the resource side, trying to figure out what your business looks like over the next short period of time, we're here to help along with that process. So that's my 2 cents. Again, Chris and David, you both have done a great job explaining how these work.
Absolutely. Great job, both of you guys. Dr. Gruder, maybe you could address kind of, I'm thinking about the anxiety that people had to have been going through, and what do I do? How do I go about doing it? Do you think people are just sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything? What's your thoughts on, because it has to have created some mental anxiety for people, and trying to figure out what to do, and maybe you can address some of those issues, Dr. Gruder.
Sure. Thanks, Troy, and wonderful, wonderful presentation on clearing up the confusion about the loan options and clarifying the confusion that is still existing. And of course, that's part of the anxiety, is not really knowing, even if people apply for these loans, not knowing when the loans are going to be funded. There's all kinds of anxiety going around, and the part of the anxiety piece that I want to address, Troy, is kind of the front end for what you're going to be moving into after me, which is a 60 to 90 day strategic plan for responding to and hopefully flourishing in this upheaval and beyond. And so in the spirit of decreasing anxiety, I'm going to very quickly go through 5 key dimensions that on a psychological level belong in your 60 to 90 day strategic plan. And the framing around this is we use the term social distancing, but it's an unfortunate term in the sense that we need the opposite of social distancing. What we need is physical distancing and social closeness. And so this is about you as a business owner, as a CEO, as an executive, teaching your team how to do social closeness as a business team by implementing 5 key psychological dimensions that I really advocate would be part of your 60 to 90 day strategic plan for addressing this upheaval. And I'm just going to say what those 5 areas are, and then I'm very quickly going to move through each of these 5 areas. The 5 areas are well-being, life energy allocations, team check-ins, motivational updates, and engagement initiatives. So on the well-being side of it, it's about setting the bar for yourself and your people, keeping yourself and your people healthy, de-stressed, and invigorated through innovation. Abstain from, you really want to encourage your team to abstain from overdosing on pandemic panic, news flashes, and to instead keep an upward gaze so that all of you stay open to how this upheaval can be transformative for you as the business owner, for your personnel, and for your company. The second is about life energy allocations. I really suggest that you train your people in how to develop and implement work-at-home life energy allocations through what I call life energy pie charts. And what a life energy pie chart is, all of us are familiar with budget pie charts. Well, just as with a budget pie chart, all of us have 100% of our life energy that we allocate to various kinds of things: self-care, family, maybe spiritual development, exercise, revenue generation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I recommend that you train your people in how to develop a life energy allocation pie so that they can see how each pie slice that they have is in size relative to the size of the other pie slices in their life energy pie, because they need to be committing to a sizable slice of their energy, their life energy pie, for their work, the work that they're doing at home. And as they develop that clarity, then they transfer that clarity into scheduled daily time allocations for each of those life energy pie slices, so that they're not neglecting their family, but they're not neglecting their responsibilities in your business. And I recommend, on a specific level, that you teach your team to start each day with some form of upward gaze, as I call it, whether it's meditation or praying or whatever that individual resonates with, that connects them with something larger than themselves, followed by translating that that inner state into outer action by superbly completing one small time-consuming task, as simple as making your bed in a really beautiful way, because that then sets a tone for the day. And then you follow that by setting your commitments for the day. And if you're not familiar with task management software like Trello, which has a free version, that can be a really good way of tracking tasks individually and as a team. The third dimension is team check-ins. And what I recommend is a team check-in on Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. So on Monday mornings, you hold a start of the week team meeting to briefly review your tasks that for the week and the handoff sequencing and timing, because tasks are being done remotely. So it's really important for people to know who's handing off what to whom with each project. And then at the end of the week, Friday afternoon, having a team meeting to review what's working well in your online collaboration, your remote collaboration, and to identify even better ifs. What can be even better next week in terms of how we review our tasks and how we do our handoff sequencing and timing. The fourth area is motivational updates. So as your team's leader, or as the executive, or as the company owner, I recommend that on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays of each week that you send your team in the morning a daily 2-minute video for them to start the day. Offer a positive attitude thought for the day, any useful updates that they may need to know in order to execute their tasks for that day, or regarding a project that people are working on, and motivating reminders about deliverables and collaboration, the importance of collaboration and what deliverables you're working toward that week. And then the final area is engagement initiatives. And I really recommend that you schedule opportunity brainstorming sessions that lead to you as a company or as a work team selecting initiatives that you're going to pursue, and then translate those initiatives into sequenced deliverables and the handoffs, who's doing what and who's handing off their work to whom next in order for the project to continue to move forward. And I recommend 2 types of brainstorming sessions. One is a brainstorming session about during the upheaval opportunities. So having your team brainstorm about unexpected opportunities that the current crisis is inadvertently providing to your business. Those might be income generating to help you stay afloat, and/or it might be customer loyalty boosting so that your customers, you remain top of mind by your customers and your prospects, so that they send you business your way after the crisis ends. And if you find that you have those, then incorporate that into your strategic plan and turn those best brainstorms that you come up with into initiatives that build on your company's strengths. And then the second type of initiative is the new normal post-upheaval opportunity brainstorming, where you start to consider what is the new normal after this ends going to mean in terms of how we can really grow and thrive as a business. So have your team brainstorm about unexpected opportunities that the new normal after this crisis ends is inadvertently providing to your business, and turn those best brainstorms into initiatives that can rebuild your business after the crisis, so it can be sold if you're still moving toward selling your business, so it can be sold for the best possible price after this pandemic fades and the economy bounces back. That's in a really, really brief nutshell in terms of my 5 psychological dimensions that belong in your 60 to 90-day strategic plan.
So what you're really saying is a good dose of CNN in the morning isn't the best way to start your day?
No, not a good dose of CNN, Fox, MSNBC, or any of the others. It is not your best way to start the day. If you're going to do that, do it at the end of the day, or do it while you're taking a break. But the important part is each person can only take in so much information before they start going into anxiety. That varies from one person to the next. For some people, it's 30 seconds and they're done. For other people, they have better muscles developed. Don't exceed your muscles, because it's only going to impair your happiness, your connection ability with the people you love, and your work performance.
I do like the idea of getting your team together at the end of the week and, having kind of maybe just a connection meeting. How'd your week go? What were you able to get accomplished? I think that's a great idea. I know that we haven't implemented that at Blue Sky, but I think that's a good idea. We did have a question come in, and I know that David and Chris have answered it, but maybe you guys could answer that question verbally for those people that aren't following the chat box. Chris and David Stahl. Amy, you're going to have to unmute them again.
I think she got us now, finally.
Right.
I'll let Chris take the side of the documentation and all that side of it.
Sure.
First.
As the SBA has put out, the 1099 and contractors can go live and apply for these PPP loans on Friday. Up to this point, everything that was allowable to be put in had to have been backed up by payroll, by W-2 information. They specifically excluded contractors or people that you pay a 1099 or as a contractor in your PPP calculation for companies that have applied this week. Sole proprietorships, 1099 contractors are deemed to be a separate business. They're supposed to be able to apply for these loans on Friday, but they don't really have any specific guidance yet. And so it was easy to do. If you have payroll, you're going to have to look at your payroll tax filings, your 940s. Okay, that's your backup. For a 1099 contractor, or an individual of sole proprietorship that just earns money from their entity, start putting your records together to show what you received last year. So any 1099s and tax documents, tax returns. And then even though you're a sole proprietorship, you should still be keeping your books and records. So start putting that together to be able to show what you received last year and what you made. And as the guidance comes out, we'll update you. So remember, we'll send you a copy of the slides out today. And if that guidance comes down on Thursday night, which is what I suspect, then we'll get that out to the group also.
Very good. Okay. David Stahl.
Yeah, just to add, and I put in the chat feature, most banks and credit unions have stood up an online portal to provide ease of use, and so I'm anticipating that when the portal opens up on Friday to accept applications from sole proprietors, independent contractors, and alike, there's going to be more applications trying to get in the system to an already backlogged system at a lot of these banks and credit unions. And so I'd encourage you, try to maybe reach out to your bank, see what they're hearing about independent contractors and 1099s, and then find out if they are participating in the online portal. I put a suggestion in there. If you insert your bank's name in Google PPP loan, it should take you right to their designated page. And so I just encourage you, maybe start doing that now, and then preparing your documents, like Chris said, to go ahead and be able to substantiate the loan amount that you're requesting. I'll tell you, from our side of things, when we've been putting together the packages, we are relying heavily on the 940s and then the 941s to justify the backup data for the payroll calculation. So I would encourage you to start getting those together and then figuring out what's your bank's process to getting these applications in.
Great. Are you going to have an online portal at Hillcrest as well, David? Amy, you need help?
Hey, I think I've done a pretty good job at all my webinars around muting and unmuting myself.
Right.
But yeah, we should actually find out. Presently, we've been processing all the applications by hand, manually.
Mhm.
We've taken nearly 1,300 applications, looking at the latest number. 1,300 applications, 852 have made their way into our process. And we've been doing that without an online portal at the moment. We are hoping to stand up one later this afternoon, and I should have more details about that, as the day unfolds. But yeah, our intent is to stand something up on our websites.
Awesome. That's great. Both Matt and Dr. Gruder talked about a 60 to a 90-day plan. Blue Sky has developed a robust evaluation process. And in fact, everybody's going to get a questionnaire that we're going to send out to you, and that'll generate a free report that will touch on a bunch of key topics within your business and looking at some key metrics. And I know, David, you had something else you wanted to discuss, David Gruder. And Matt, I'd love to get your thoughts on because not only do you have to develop this plan, you got to think about all the money you need to collect or try it in your loan application in order to have your business run. And this really is a Band-Aid. It's the money you're going to get is not going to be enough to sustain a prolonged shutdown of the economy. And so we're really going to have to think about new entrepreneurial ways to run your business, to be able to connect with your clients or your customers, and to get your products or services made available. And Blue Sky and Chris Badger are, with now CFO, are uniquely positioned to be able to help you with that. And I also want to say, I didn't say this at the beginning, but this is going to be the first of a weekly webinar that we're going to host. There'll be multiple topics coming on. Next week, we are going to talk about HR. I am currently trying to get Congressman Ben McAdams to be on the call with us next week as well. So I'm reaching out to his office today, and we're going to see if we can make him available to talk about some of the, some of the factors on an individual basis and how that relates to companies. So David, with that, go ahead and whatever it was that you wanted to complete and say, go ahead.
Sure. What I forgot to say is that if you don't know how to fully implement in your business one or more of the psychological dimensions that I covered, then just reach out, talk to me, because one of my areas of expertise is culture creation in
Right.
businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, when you're talking with people and, trying to come up with a loan amount that they should be looking at, I mean, I know there's some specific guidelines in the loan, even the idle loan. I think there's some specific, requirements or things you have to look at when you consider the amount of the loan. What is your thought process on that?
I think it's important that I mentioned it earlier that we're analyzing. So we're taking a company and saying, okay, it's a guessing game, right? How long is this going to last?
Right.
Is it going to be when the sunshine kicks off and this burns off and we all go back to status quo? I don't think that's what's going on here. I think it dives a lot deeper than that. I think people have to look at their cash flow. They have to make some decisions. So whatever decisions you're making on your company right now, where if you're making, you got to be thinking about, do I really have to make that purchase in the next 30 days? Because if this SBA thing doesn't land, if you don't get some relief from this, you might consider having to make those cuts now. With your employees, again, like I spoke about, if you're looking at the loan forgiveness or the PPP loan, and if your business is going to collapse in 12 weeks and you're depending on these loans, you need to start making some cuts now and start looking at how you can be in a good cash position. Because I think at this point, the name of the game is, with a little bit of cash injection, with the SBA opportunities, that the survival rate is much better if you can have yourself in a good cash position. And we can help at Blue Sky with, if you're in a position where it's just going to take a little bit of cash to kind of get you through a push through moment, I think through our resources we can offer some opportunities there as well. Along with the SBA, I think we're just shoring up for success. So if you're a company out there and you're struggling, you're trying to figure out what this is going to look like, I think you're at the gut of this thing. You better start figuring out what your cash flow position is right now. Cash is going to be king over the next couple months.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I think you're going to have to really consider some innovative ways to go about doing your business. I mean, I know that, the conference call thing is, on webinars, I feel like people are starting to get webinar fatigue to some degree, but until we come up with a better way, or we can start being around each other, want to get, once again, without infecting everybody, that this is going to have to be our new normal, right? I think our HR conversation is the week after next, right, David? And then next week we're doing the healthcare impact. Is that right? I know that I think you're moderating that panel, if I'm correct, right? That should be a great panel. The following week we'll have Insperity will be on there with Michelle Christensen. We've asked Susan Spears of the Utah Association of CPAs to moderate that panel on HR. And we will try to get Congressman McAdams on that panel as well. So I think that should make for an interesting conversation. Chris, do you have any maybe high points you could talk about as far as a 60, 90, 180-day plan that people may want to consider or think about?
Yeah, I mean, Troy, what we've done is help clients think of it's a 13-week cash flow, 3-month, 90-day cash flow projection, and we do it week by week. And part of that is really helping companies understand, what's my break-even point by week. And I think Matt had a great suggestion. You got to take a look at, this isn't going to just be for the month of April.
Right.
I've already had a lot of things in June go ahead and cancel. And so, now CFO is a firm, we've already taken some steps to cut backs. We haven't had to lay anybody off, which we hope to continue. But, we've instituted some different pay reductions and other things to conserve our cash, because we want to be flexible enough and nimble enough to survive this. And so don't wait, right? It's one of those things, it's a great unknown. I've got a meeting with a client a little bit later on this afternoon that 3 weeks ago, we were just going to be shut down through April 15th and everything was going to be great after that. Well, they've been told they're shut until June 1st. And I think that's even optimistic. So this is going to continue on for a while. It's the new normal. Yep. And, make some plans and start making some decisions so you can survive that new normal.
Absolutely. I was talking with Susan Spears at Utah Association of CPAs earlier this week, and she was thinking, and I think this is coming from the governor's office, they think the peak in Utah is going to be around the 23rd of April for the outbreak. I've seen where other states are starting to level off and dissipate a little bit. So it appears that the social distancing is working and that people have taken this pretty serious, which is really good. We are running out of time. We've got 2 minutes left. Are there any final thoughts or questions, Chris, that you would like to suggest? And for anybody that's participating, if you have any final questions, please put them into the chat box.
Yeah, and realize we'll be sending you some of the materials out, and then for every company is different and has different circumstances, and for some of them it may be the disaster loan, some of them it may be the PPP loan. And so if you've got questions, go ahead and reach out. Right now at this point we're just trying to help companies and get the information out. And again, every company with facts and circumstances are a little bit different, and just reach out. We can, we do free consultations. I've actually got 4 meetings this afternoon with just people with questions of, what do I do? Is it an idle loan? Is it a disaster loan? Or do I do a PPP? Who can I include with payroll? What do I do with my people I pay as 1099? And so if you've got those questions, just reach out. And David's a great resource on the triple P with the banking side, because he's actually processing. There's some of the larger banks in town right now. I've got a couple of clients that got email notice late yesterday that their triple P loans will not be processed. So
Okay.
they're in the process of looking for new banking relationships. So
Right.
it's a strange time, but like I said, get used to it. It's the new normal, and it can still be a great year.
Absolutely. We are going to put on another webinar where we'll get into the weeds on a 60 to 90 day plan, strategic plan outside of the capital requirements that are looking at. So look forward to that coming in your inbox soon. I really do. We're at the top of the hour. I really do appreciate everybody's time. I thought this was a great panel discussion. I appreciate you guys being in there, and despite a few technical glitches, I think it worked pretty well. So Amy, thank you for your patience and working through this with us as well. I really appreciate everybody being here. If you don't have any final questions, thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.